right, so this is going to be just a short little transmission. I'm going to start doing these little keys for you guys. I don't have a lot of information about what I'm about to say, but I feel like there are microcodes that really need to be transmitted as quickly as possible, because these keys are codes that are going to unlock things for people. And so it's like, I've got the key, and then the people listening are going to further the unlocking. So the code key that I got today, that I was asked to transmit, was that there were massive trauma memory implants loaded into these incarnational experiences. Seems to be around the moment of birth. Now, a couple of years ago, we recorded a podcast. I think it was on the Luxury Witch Lifestyle podcast. I think. Could have been on XOXO Elena Rose. But it was on one of the old podcasts. And we recorded this podcast where I was theorizing that things had not gone 100% according to plan at some point in time, either upon incarnation, or that the incarnational experience was mimicking something that had happened at a previous date. I'm not sure if I said that in the episode then, but I've had this theory for a minute that there was something that happened upon incarnation for many people, where there was some sort of false codes implanted. I've likened it to in Harry Potter when they have the false memory, the altered memory of Slughorn, and it's not giving them the answers that they need, and Dumbledore's like, we really need this real memory, right? It's literally almost just exactly like that, like what I've picked up both in my own memory codes and clients. I facilitated, a few hundred past life sessions for people. The past life work has been a huge part of my work for the entire, almost decade now that Harvest Rose has been in existence. And then also I started doing past life work when I was 19 years old. So it was actually the first thing that I started really exploring was the past life work. Even before I started doing readings and anything like that, I was astrally traveling to other experiences of myself. So I have done an immense amount of memory exploration in my own work of my own memories and things. And I had an immense amount of trauma memories implanted. I had memories of my children dying. I had memories of my family being killed. I had memories of being killed myself. I had memories of all of these different traumatic events, right? And I've noticed that they take on different flavors for different people, right? There's always something, like a specific flavor of the trauma coding that they have. And it varies according to individual. I started becoming aware through immersion. So nightly, I was visiting the most traumatic memories that I had on purpose to see what the fuck happened. I was like, fine, if this happened, let's go see why it happened. Let's go see who was the cause of this. Let's go see where the source was, right? I wanted to know. And most people will not look at traumatic memories to the level that I have. And that also was heavily facilitated through the 6 years that I spent working every single week, Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time with my trauma therapist. 6 years weekly. Maybe once a quarter she went on vacation. We didn't have therapy 48 weeks of the year though. I was in therapy for 6 years. And she was a trained she's specialized in trauma therapy. And I discussed these past life, traumas. I worked through my past life traumas in my actual this incarnational experience trauma therapy. And what I began to realize was a lot of these memories were completely false. They were complete implants that had never happened. They were based on a real memory that I had sitting in my memory bank, but the trauma was the implanted part. And for a minute, I was like, am I just trying to spiritually bypass myself, right? Am I just trying to bypass these traumatic memories because I can't handle them or whatever? Like, bitch, I've already looked at it a fucking 100 times in a, astral projection. And what I started to realize was there was no source of these memories. The memories didn't source out properly. They didn't code out properly. When I looked at what had happened in the memory, it didn't make sense. And that's what started me thinking a bunch of the stuff was fake. This is actually what led me to realize that all of those people that I thought were my soul family that were not. It was because I realized that these trauma-coded memories were doctored. They had been altered. They were not real in their entirety. There would be, oh, we went to the theater one afternoon, right? That was the only thing that would code out as real in the memory. And then there would be this entire, millennia spanning trauma that had happened that night, right? Except when I tried to go find, okay, if you've had a traumatic event happen in this incarnational experience, you can probably tell me what happened, right? I can tell you what happened in my traumatic memories. Here's what happened. Here's where it all goes. It all goes back to that one fucking day in college. You know what I mean? Right. I knew I never should have gone out with them. I knew I shouldn't have gone there. I knew that this person sucked and they were just pulling the wool over my eyes. You know what I mean? I knew that this was going on the whole time. I've heard so many people tell me that in every single psychic session I've ever done. Over 3,000 psychic sessions. I have had the vast majority of people be able to tell me exactly. They know for a fact. They're like, nope, I know what it was. I say, this is coding back to an older woman, and I know who it is. I mean, every time it's been shocking to me how many people know exactly who worked the magic on them, what they did, why they did it, how long it's been going on, probably if they had a practitioner, who the practitioner was, and what flavor that practitioner threw at them, right? And a consistent thing that I noticed with past life work was that people were not able to have the same clarity. Well, it's because it's a past life, people would say. Nah, that's not true. Memory recall is memory recall. The mechanisms for memory recall are the exact same, whether you're trying to remember something about your 19th birthday party in 2008, or you're trying to remember something that happened 80,000 years ago on this planet, or you're trying to remember something that happened in a completely different universe. Memory recall is the same. Your memory exists across all space and time. It is a neural network of yourself. You can tap into the neural network of yourself and get access to any codes you want at any moment in time, unless for some reason you have had access removed to those codes. This happens for one of two reasons. One, some people had their actual memories fucking wiped. Some people got information that they did not need access to, according to just everybody on the all neural networks of telepathy was like, nah, you don't need to know how to fucking do a curse. You an asshole. Wipe that shit. Right? That's kind of how it's been described to me. Then there are things that have been wiped or bound in people's memories on purpose to separate them from the truth. Typically, so I was having this interesting kind of memory process. I have these memories of this place that I have kind of loosely referred to as God School. Best way I can put it, right? A location where many of us at some point in time basically went to school to learn different things, how to wield certain things in certain locations, different stuff. Really cool. I have encountered certain people incarnated in the physical form who have claimed to have attended this same school, who I later realized, yeah, maybe they went for like a year or two if you were to put this in Earth terms, but they did not graduate. That thesis was not defended. They are not actually a practicing doctor. They dropped out after like the first 8 months of med school. You know what I mean? But then they went to another planet, started calling themselves a doctor, and were like, oh yes, I'm a neurosurgeon in Andromeda. Meanwhile, they actually no, they're not. Right? They have a small amount of understanding. And I think that this is also where a lot of this shade phenomenon came from. I believe that a lot of beings were given, and this goes back a long time ago, long ago, many beings were freely given information. I believe that some of those beings seem to have decided to do some not so great stuff with that information. And everyone else was like, are you fucking serious? And then those beings decided to just kind of run with that vibe, right? And then they wanted to go out, pretend to be the beings who had graduated with their, they had defended the bar interdimensionally, right? If we're going to put this in Earth terms, right? Whatever that may be, they actually could practice alchemy. I think this is why we have all these fake alchemists. It's like they took one alchemy class interdimensionally, failed, and then thought that, a couple eons later, the people that they were mean to in that class would have forgotten who they were, and they would be able to just come to Earth and be like, oh yes, I'm an alchemy pioneer. Oh yes, I'm the blah 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 of blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Right? And then this is where we end up with a lot of the ick. This is what the ick is, by the way. It's really just beings who at one point in time decided to be assholes. It's assholes. Let's call them what they are. Okay? It's assholes being assholes. So I think that what happened is that a lot of these beings that we have encountered who, it's interesting, isn't it? They've all got a lot of validation issues. They love to implant self-worth and self-confidence issues in others. They love to make other people doubt themselves while putting themselves on pedestals, right? And then what tends to happen is the people who really do have these really, really just next level connections and abilities, they get in those spirals of self-doubt and shame and confusion and XYZ. And then it's because they are genuinely believing that this person was ever part of their soul family, one of their kids, one of their students, somebody, one of their lovers, their twin flame, their XYZ, what the fuck ever, right? Been there, done that. We should get t-shirts, guys. It's nothing to feel bad about. I do not want you to enter into any lower vibrational, icky, oh, what's wrong with me? Fucking vibes. If you've been here, okay? Or if you're here right now, what I want you to accept is that those people were never who you thought they were. You know what I mean? And that stuff that they convinced you happened probably never even happened. And I want you to go look at the memories. Okay? And when I say that, I mean, don't go make yourself relive fucking fake trauma memories. Like, I realized I was reliving fake trauma memories all the time back in like 2018, 2019. And I did it on purpose so that I could start to tell the difference between a real memory and a fake memory. And I found that there's a theme. In every fake memory, this is what I mean by look at the memory. Look at the memory like you're watching a VHS tape that has been doctored. Okay? That has been spliced together. Can't do it anymore digital, right? But you can still edit stuff. There's still a theme, even though we're not actually, like splicing fucking film together anymore. Like it's 1908, you know what I mean? Or whenever, like the, I don't know, random year. Whenever they had films, tapes, right? 1983 and you're making a movie, right? There's still a theme, even if it's digitally edited. You can still see that switch. There is a theme in all of my fake memories where the real memory ends, and sometimes it's 3 seconds of a real memory, and then hours to days to months to years of fake shit put in there. And this is why I mean it's This is what I mean when I say it's self-insert fanfic. Okay? These people are doing self-insert fanfics with our memories. They have edited memories. And then what happens is it's like, I don't really know how to explain it yet, but it's like when you go into the incarnational experience, I think this is why all of my children were like, no, we're not going to incarnate in that manner, except for the furry ones. But my more usually humanoid shaped babies, yeah, had a few of them, literally thought my kids were incarnated in the physical form. They slept in my bed. I took them on vacation. I paid their rent. Okay. So if you're sitting here like feeling bad about yourself right now because somebody that you thought was your soul fam and was your like homie from Andromeda or whatever, like turned out not to be, I need you to stop feeling bad about yourself and start placing the blame where it belongs, which is those fucking idiots. Okay. I'm going to be honest. Put the blame where it deserves to go, which is those fucking idiots. Those people came in, there were memory alterations so that they could pass more undetected. So that when we came into contact with them, because I think it was one big op that failed. They're so bad at their jobs. Let's laugh at them. Let's just laugh at them. They're bad at their jobs. You're a shitty memory editor. You would never get paid to actually professionally, interdimensionally edit memories, which is why you can't shift timelines. You failed the class. Sorry. Sucks to suck. You know what I mean? Put that blame right where it belongs because they want you to blame yourself because that is the whole point of them doing this, right? They alter the memories. You get false implants upon incarnation. You carry those implants. Those implants are activated when you come into contact with the individual. Then you're convinced that's my wife, that's my husband, that's my kid, that's my mom, that's my dad, that's my cat, whatever, right? That's my second lieutenant on my spaceship, whatever, right? Then that person's always going to fuck you over. You know that, right? They were always going to fuck you over. It wasn't you, by the way. They came into your life with the end goal of one day fucking you over interdimensionally. That was the whole point. You didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing you could have done differently. They hated you from the beginning. They hated you before birth. This is a long-standing, like, the assholes really don't like those of us that successfully defended our interdimensional theses. Okay? Like, they hate us because they hate us. That's what it is. I figured it out. They ain't nothing. They ain't shit. They ain't nothing to be afraid of, y'all. This is not Witch Wars 2.0. These people couldn't cast they can't cast shit. That's the point. They can't cast shit. They can't do anything. That's why they have to try to tear us down so much. And that's why they did this trauma insertion thing, because they thought if they gave us a bunch of fake memories, turned us on each other, the real each others, right? Because that was the thing. They knew we were always going to find each other. We always find each other. So they thought, oh, well, maybe if we convince them that I am who they're looking for, right? Then I'll break their heart, right? Like my fucking ex-wife, right? She thought she was going to come in here, break my heart, and then I was just going to forget that Michael ever existed. Bitch, I told you from the beginning I was bisexual. I was never going to forget that dick across space and time. Okay, let's just start right there. Okay? Start right there. It wasn't going to happen. She could never, right? So what happens is you get out of the trauma spiral that they induce. Then you have to get out of the fake trauma memories that are activated when the in-person fake trauma spiral happens. And then you have to go through all of that. Well, then what happens is it's actually a heat-seeking interdimensional missile designed to just kill your self-confidence so you won't go out and do the thing that you're supposed to do here, so that you'll get into financial issues, so that you'll doubt yourself. Because what they legitimately think is that they can go out and use and wield our power. It's like, well, if you had never graduated alchemy school, that would have been my spot, and I'm taking back what's mine. Like, bitch, you still don't know what an alembic is. That's why you didn't graduate. you were just bad at it. Like, go get a different job. You know what I mean? And I really legitimately think that that's what's going on here. I'm going to be honest. So many people think that this is like some sort of like spiritual war. I'm convinced this is about fucking interdimensional jobs. I think this is the stupidest shit known to man. I don't even think this is a good fight. I think this is a stupid fight. I think these people legitimately peaked in interdimensional high school and have made it their entire personality for time immemorial. And then, to make it even better, them peaking in high school was them not even bothering to graduate, much like my ex-wife. Oh, shit! Now, that sounds like a petty jab, but actually it's not. She was so jealous of the fact that I completed my degree and she dropped out. And I was like, well, bitch, that was your choice, right? I could have dropped out. I didn't. School was really, really hard for me. And I had to fight a lot to end up graduating with that degree, even to the extent that I've lived with chronic pain since I was 18 years old. The first day of my second semester of college, my freshman year, I had a wreck that has left me in chronic pain, and I'm now 36. Right? So I literally some days just sitting up in a chair to attend class was fighting, and people, made fun of me all the time and were really mean to me about how I wasn't in pain and I was making it all up for attention. And I was like, I assure you, I'm not. I would literally be sitting there no, pale ass white, I'm in so much pain I can barely sit up, but damn it, I drug my ass to that 8 a.m. class because I was like, I'll be damned if you people are gonna be, if y'all are gonna if I'm gonna be what you say I am, right? I was just not gonna do it. Then to further that, right, when you go out and thrive after a trauma induction experience has happened, that has been completely falsely coded from the get-go. It was not even supposed to occur. These people are not they are not your real people. At some point in time, they came in and started pretending to be, for some unhinged, insane reason that I'm going to be honest, I think after a decade of trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, I've hit a point where I don't give a flying fuck. I don't care what the root was anymore. I don't give a shit because they want us to. Right? That's actually it. They want us to care. Remember me. I happened to see a very interesting post from someone who I declined to work with, and then Harvest Rose made sure that happened, because when she tried to go check out on, I was like, Harvest Rose, you know the drill, girl. This person's sus. I need you to make sure they cannot check out. And 5 minutes later, this person was back in my DMs like, I've changed my mind, actually. I think I just need to wait. And I was like, oh, honey, I think that's a fabulous idea for you. Best wishes. Block. That happened last year. But I had to look this person up. They rolled across my convenient little movie screen, my third eye that gives me messages and tells me when weird shit's going on. I happened to go look them up. Interesting person. And what I found is that this person has had a 180 since they spoke to me, and has started channeling someone never before heard of on Earth, apparently, a forgotten deity. Now, this is weird, because I was like, yo, a few years ago, with some fakey fakers. Here's the thing about fakey fakers. Fakey fakers turn on each other. So there was a group of fakey fakers that, was like the fam or whatever, the fake fam. Well, those fakey fakers really hated my fakey faker roommate, who was also pretending at the time to be my interdimensional grandmother. I've since realized she was not, because she couldn't actually wield any of her own power. And that's the way that they have their own power. I've been working with a fabulous multidimensional baddie for the past couple of months who definitely can wield all of their own power across time and space. And that was how I was able to really realize no, she was a fakey faker too. Not clearly my fabulous multidimensional baddie, but the person I lived with back in the day, she was my roommate and like my BFF, right? I was like, nah, she was faking too. But she had a lot of very interesting information. Now, what's interesting is faker ex-roommate. She was the one who introduced me to Enochian magic and the Enochian heirs. The Enochian heirs were some of the most trauma-inducing magic that I found, and I have studied, open, closed, I don't give a fuck. I've found people to study from who will tell me stuff. I've found clients who are, it's funny to me when people want to talk about like closed practices in witchcraft on the internet. Honey, you don't know shit about closed practices in witchcraft until you become a professional witch and you work with people from every single culture. I have had clients come in and tell me all the magical secrets from every single fucking magical culture out there. Cause they're like, here's what this person did. Here's what this is. Oh yeah, this is well known in the culture. This is well known in the culture. They would come in, they would give me all the codes, and then they'd be like, can you fucking help me? Because nobody in that culture could help them because they were all working in the same bullshit arena, right? That happened a lot, especially I had a ton of clients from England. Who were members of the not English culture, but a culture that's very commonly found in England. And they gave me all the tea about the magical practices from this very shadowed, hidden region of the world, and told me all the tea. And I was like, wow, and connected a bunch of dots, with that. So I have a lot of information about a lot of different regions that you cannot find in books. You cannot find this on the internet. You cannot Google this. I tried. The people would tell, I've had clients from literally every continent but Antarctica. So let your imagination run wild there. And my clients always they love telling me all about their magical culture codes and then being like, can you help me fucking fix this? Because they not. And unfortunately, a lot of the practitioners that they were going to were oftentimes casting more magic on them to keep them coming back. And they were like, but I want to get it. Like the whole point is I want this to be gone. Right. And so that was always my goal, was that, as much as it does suck because I miss the people that I've worked with, who I've never heard from again. But so much of the time, people would come, they'd work with me for, a few months to a couple of years, and then everything would align and we would have gotten all the magic taken care of and all the timelines would have gotten realigned and we would have taken care of everything and rewoven everything, and then their life would just be unfolding the way that it was supposed to. And so, we didn't need to work together anymore, but oftentimes they still pop up, and send me little updates. And I love that. I love getting updates from people that I literally haven't worked with for 6 years. I love it when we got married, everything worked out, everything that we worked on together. I love that. That's happened so many times. It's been really fabulous. And this is what I mean by being able to wield your own power. I can wield my own power. I know what my power is. I know what my domain is. I know every fucking thing about it. And I have devoted my entire existence to it for a decade. So there's that. These people have not, and they cannot wield anything of their own. You'll notice that all they ever do is copy other people. They will talk about how, oh yes, we do ancient practices here. Honey, they're doing ancient practices because they can't do anything new. Okay. Or everything that they're doing is so evolutionary, no one's ever heard of it, except it's literally the same old, just really watered down. That's because they can't actually understand the complexity of what they're talking about. This is why these people oversimplify everything. It is a big red flag if you find someone who's talking about being an expert, being a specialist, or walking, I quote, I'm not kidding, the mastery path, who dilutes everything down into the most simple terms known to man. It is a huge red flag because magic and the study of magic and everything under the umbrella of magic, right, in the spiritual realms, it's actually all quite complex. And it all fits together. I've studied every single religion. I've studied every single mythology, the major facets of them, right? I've had a good crash course on everything. I used to study 3 to 5 hours a night after I would get done with my professional witching for the day. Okay? When I say I devoted my life to my work, I quite literally mean I have devoted my life to my work on a level that I've not encountered many other people who have, right? For whatever reason. It's just a personal choice of mine. It doesn't necessarily make me better than anybody else. It has given me a vast amount of information that most people just simply don't have because they just literally haven't actually studied the things that I've studied. And what I started to realize when I was doing all the studying, I was doing a lot of studying into like, really I was tracking a lot of timelines through mythology and history and religion and the way that those threads, if you look at the threads, you can just take every single fucking historical story, every mythology, every religion, you can stack them on top of each other and you're going to get what basically kind of looks like a grid of threads that line up very oddly. You know, maybe they're a couple of degrees to the left here and there, right? But they're right there. And the theory that I started to tune into was that there was this group of beings who one could call any name that you wanted to. You could call them ETs, you could call them aliens, you could call them gods, you could call them goddesses, you could call them whatever the fuck you want to, whatever you want to call them. This group of beings at some point attempted to learn to wield this immense power and failed. And then they decided to make their failure everybody else's problem. Right? Like they were really, really, really convinced that they could just go out and make it everybody else's problem. And when that didn't work, that's when they started doing things like attempting to introduce the implanted trauma triggers. That's when we started experiencing things like the shades of Sirius. The shades of Sirius were engineered during the Sirian frequency and grid wars to cause confusion by masquerading as other people. Does that mean those beings were initially shades, right? No, I'm sure those beings have a source code of their own. What we uncovered in I call them the Syrian zombie hospitals, because basically what happened is these shades got so far from themselves, they would just keep they basically became like the consciousness level of an NPC. That does not mean they source code as an NPC. That means that basically what happens is they kind of turned into zombies, and these massive hospitals were constructed interdimensionally to figure out how to heal this stuff, because it's a rolling, not a stopwatch. Shit don't ever stop. So most people don't understand that, like, death really is just the beginning. Death is an illusion. Death is not real. When you excarnate, you're basically going to wake up in a different environment, and then you're still going to have all your trauma that you have to deal with. You're still going to have all your experiences you've got to alchemize. You're not just going to float up into heaven and everything's going to feel fabulous. You're going to go through soul processing. What is soul processing? Soul processing is where you have to confront your shit. It is the OG shadow work, right? Yeah, it's kind of like your girl's interdimensional. Hi, welcome to hell. So, yeah, you know all that trauma you spent 20 years trying to heal? It was fake from the beginning. How does that make you feel? I'm like an interdimensional therapist, guys. Okay. So, no, literally, but with magic. That's like all my friends called me a Therawitch back in the day, because they were like, they would hear, I'd go out on Friday night and they'd be like, so how was your week? And I'd be like, well, we had 3 generational curses. And I'd give them like the and then we had this, and then we had this, and then we had that. I'd give them the overview over, shots. And, they all called me a Therawitch. Because I'd be like, but we had the generational curses, but then we looked at how that was, impacting these people's ability to communicate their desires with even themselves, much less their romantic partners, and especially with their friends and their coworkers. They were really having communication issues. I'd just be going through like this laundry list, like I'd therapied these people. There's bell work consultations, because that's what I was doing. And oftentimes I would be recommending therapy and how to go about getting that and all of those things. Well, I've had a ton of dreams of working in the Syrian psych wards and zombie hospitals. And then I realized that those dreams weren't dreams. They were basically when I travel, well, they are dreams, but I mean, what's a dream? When I dream, I travel, I go to sleep, and I wake up in a different timeline of myself. That's how I have so many codes and information. Because I'm conscious for the whole thing. I'm even conscious when I go to sleep. I'm like, oh, I'm going to sleep now. I'm going to wake up somewhere soon. And then I wake up somewhere. And then I'm like, oh, time to go back to Earth. And then I go back to Earth. And then I wake up on Earth. And I'm like, oh, I've awakened. Time for coffee. So I learned how to control my dream, wake, liminal spaces. And to let you travel through a liminal space when you fall asleep and when you wake up. So if you're finding that you're going to like trauma dreams, that liminal space that you're passing through might be corrupted or hacked. You might have some sort of trauma trigger implanted in your actual dream portal that you travel through when you go between realms. So you can do some interdimensional work to recode that portal and also just set it. The biggest thing I can say to, how do you do that, right? The biggest thing is to just set an intention before you fall asleep. I was going into all of these trauma trigger dreams back in like 2018, 2019, 2020. And one day I had fucking had enough of that because I had a dream and I knew I was like, I'm traveling and I'm somewhere else and I can see shit and I can get information here. If these fucking idiots from my past, like, my birth giver, my ex-wife, my grandma, random people were like constantly fucking showing up in my dreams, right? There were people trying to kill me in my dreams. And I was like, that's not even how that works. Like, why are you, I'm just going to stab you and then it's just going to heal. And then it's like, we're just going to do it. That's not how this works here. Like I was yelling at the people in the dream, like, why are we doing this? It's completely ineffective. This is not doing it. Right. I was like, I've had enough of this. So I just started setting an intention every night every time I went to sleep, even when you take a nap, right? I just started setting this intention like, I'm not going anywhere that's going to harm me. No one that wants to harm me can show up in my dream space. I am completely safe in my dream space. I am only going to be seeing things that are going to give me the highest level of knowledge in my dreams. Right now that I'm about to enter into, I will have no traumatic experiences. No one will be after me. I will be completely safe. You know what I mean? Like setting like intentions like that. And then I would go to sleep. And then the more that I did that, the less and less the trauma dreams got. So there seems to have been some sort of hack implanted that has, because think about it, right? If dreams are memory experiences, everybody, I guess, doesn't do this, but if you do this, right? If you're going into dreams that are memory experiences and memories can be tampered with to have false trauma triggers and trauma timelines attached, then those dreams also can. Because if a dream is if it's kind of basically working off of the same multiversal memory neural network, if that's what your dreams are functioning on, and that's what your memories also function on, then they could both be hackable, right? So there seems to have been some sort of issue with memory in general and dreams, which makes me think that, but it's like whoever did this, like, I'm going to be honest, they did not know what they were fucking doing. Okay. Like they were bad at their jobs interdimensionally. I mean, they were really, 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 really bad at their jobs. Like they're so bad at their jobs interdimensionally. I got to take a hit about it. Okay. Like really bad at their jobs. Because they just did it all wrong. Like, I mean, it's so easy when you learn how to tell the difference. It is so easy to tell the difference. And then when you start seeing it, it's like, you can't stop seeing it. And then you're like, oh shit, is any of this real? And what I've started to realize is a lot of it is completely fake. A lot of it's completely fake. So if you've been stuck in the spirals of memory trauma, hello, sixth dimension, that's fine. We've all been there. Again, we're going to get t-shirts. It's okay. Don't feel bad about it. We're going to have I'm trying to scoop It's like more of a shatter, I think is what they call it. I don't know. It's tiny little bits, guys, and I'm trying to get some in the bowl. We've got a wild strawberry kush starting. Live rosin, THCA. Not sponsored, shan't be saying the brand name. I'm kidding. It's actually pretty good. It's by Canna Connect. I never wanted sponsorships like that, which is why I don't have them. They try to tell you what to do. I looked into it back in 2019, 2020. I was like, I'm going to be a witchcraft influencer. TikTok wasn't even a thing yet. It's just me and my Instagram account. And I did. We even have we have an Amazon storefront. Like the whole influencer, like Amazon storefront. We have one. Because I was like, I wanted to get, because I wanted one. And so I was like, I'm going to get approved. And I'm going to be witchcraft influencer. And then we got approved. And like, I think we put some lists on it because like we used to get all kinds of questions. Like people would DM us or comment all the time, what books do you recommend? Where do you get your altar decor? Where can I get this? Where can I get that? So we'd put together some lists with like stuff that we were commonly getting asked so that we could just send people the list, but we never did anything with that. But anyways, so I think that these people turned out being a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, but for me, it's still going to be a short one because we're almost done here. I got to go do some more interdimensional reconnaissance. But I think that these people, really just masquerading. And then we took it personally. And if you took it personally, I want you to know I'm giving you a big hug. I've taken it personally too. Okay? But we need to stop. Oh, and then the dab's ready as I say that. Like, it's time to stop. Dab time! Ooh, strawberry. It's time to stop taking this personally. It's also time to recognize that this has nothing to do with us. But quite frankly, if these people had their own abilities, they wouldn't be so obsessed with destroying ours. If they had real power, they wouldn't be obsessed with removing us from our power, right? There's never a moment in time where I'm like, I've got to go out and make sure that this person doesn't have as much power as me because I'm the most powerful. If you actually have your own power to wield, you don't give a flying fuck about what anybody else is doing. Unless there are people out there who have willingly just tried to fucking harm you, right? And then you're probably going to care. And that's the last little bit of it, right? They're always trying to get us to figure out where we went wrong. Well, what if I was their mom in a past life? Or what if I did something? What if I'm a bad person? What if, right? Honey, I love you. And I'm saying this to you like I had to say this to myself. Just stop. You can stop. It's okay. You don't have to keep doing this to yourself. You can stop. It wasn't your fault from the beginning. And you don't have to keep living like it's your fault. You can just cut those people right on off your Christmas card list. Okay? No Yuletide cards for you. You're off the list. You're not invited. And that's the thing. They desperately want to be on the list. They hate that they're not invited. You know what I mean? And the truth is, the really crazy thing about all of this that I've observed is that they were invited. They were invited. You know what I mean? And then they came in with some bullshit behavior, got themselves disinvited, and then got pissy that they couldn't just run all over us. So when you're questioning yourself in these situations, you're not actually questioning yourself. You're questioning the defenses. You're questioning the ostracization of these people post fact. And what they're doing is on a subconscious level convincing you that it was you from the beginning. But if you know that you were welcoming and you were kind and you were there for everybody, and then these people just really hated us because they ain't us, that's a them problem. And they all want to make their problems our problems. And it's really time, I think, to just go, I understand you're having an experience, but I got shit to do, so deuces. And that's about the emotional level, honestly, that these people deserve at this point. Thank you, Front Door, for confirming. I know, especially some of my more watery sign placements out there can really hold on to some stuff for a minute. Let's go ahead and be like water and flow, guys. Kind of ironic. I've got one water placement, and I'm always telling the water signs to flow. Like Michael's over here like a Scorpio moon and a Cancer rising. My 8 Earth placements ass is over here like, would you flow? Go with the flow! But I say it with love, right? I say it with love. Because you know what happens when water doesn't move? Is it gets stagnant and it starts to stink. Okay? And you are all fabulous, little sparkling, flowy water signs. And I want you guys to flow, not be stagnant stank water. But the ick wants you to be stagnant stank water, right? And my fire signs. Oh, yeah, the ick wants you to be like a fucking raging, fire tsunami instead of a fabulous candle or a marvelous warming hearth fire. Or even a bonfire that's like, when you want a bonfire, you don't want a candle, you want a bonfire, you know what I mean? Right? But they want the fire out of control and just raging over everything. The earth, they want the earth to just never move. A never moving mountain that doesn't change. Well, if you've ever lived in the mountains, you would know that mountains fall apart all the time. Mountains and ground has to flow or you're gonna get landslides. You know what I mean? It moves. It absorbs the water. If earth gets too dry, it starts to crack. Earth needs a certain amount of water. It needs a certain amount of stability. It needs a certain amount of air. It needs you don't want, I don't know if you've ever gardened, but earth that's too hard, yeah, it's not workable. You can't do shit with that. This is not how our gardens grow. Okay. And then air's got to blow. You know what I mean? If you don't have any air in your room, you're dead. If there's no flow with your air. So see, everything needs to flow. If fire cannot flow, if you cut the air off to the fire, oh, and look at this, the elements have to work together. So I think so much of the time, people get really focused on one element or the other, but look at what I just said. Earth needs water or it's going to crack. It's going to start to fall apart. Right? Fire needs air or it's going to go out. There's no oxygen. It cannot fire. The fire is not firing. Water needs earth or there would be no riverbanks. There'd be no beaches. There'd be no containment to the water, right? It would just take over everything. It'd just go everywhere. You see? So when we can really tune into the flow of the little elemental flow side note, right? When we can tune into how our elements flow together, and then we can start to be like, it's like, I'm all for having the tear transmutations and feeling the emotions and letting those, really sitting with the emotions, being present with the emotions, asking the emotions what they want to tell us, ask the emotions what they want to communicate with us. Let me tell y'all, I'm there for it. You know what I mean? What I'm not there for is having my garden turned into a swamp when I have just planted a whole bunch of new rose bushes by some weird stagnant water that someone just came in and tried to fucking pour into my garden. Right? I'm not about that. And I think that that's what's happening for so many people right now is like and let's talk about why this would happen. It's called a healing matrix. And then from that, we get a spiritual matrix. And then from that, oh, look, the business and financial matrices are supported. Because if you can introduce trauma from birth, trauma memories that aren't even real, and then you can introduce key players to trigger those trauma memories. Right? Like there was this one guy a couple of years ago who was like, he was so an actor, clearly interdimensionally. And he tried to come in and do that. And I was just like, bro, you're like the understudy of the understudy of the understudy. Like it was so easy, right? And to be honest, I was kind of just like, I'm just going to see how far he's going to take this. It was not very far as it turned out. But he tried for like 5 seconds, and it was really funny to watch. And I'm really glad that we watched that, because it was like, oh, Amazon is here. Amazon has arrived. He's got some packages. There's a package. He has a package. Is it the one you don't like, Mira? Is it the guy you don't like? Oh no. Bro, that straight up looks like somebody we used to know from the back. Yes. Oh my God. It's like a guy I used to know mixed with Chris Daughtry on like a guy I used to know like full on from the back, even walking the same way. I was like, bro, is that guy I used to know? Did he end up in the middle? What the fuck? I was like, we got to bounce right on out of this state. Like, let's roll, homie. But then he had some like Chris Daughtry vibes on the front. So it was not the guy. But anyways, so what happens, I think this was some wild fucking interdimensional fucked up business deal. I know. Did you expect this to go here? Probably not. But this is where we're going with this. I think all this fake trauma, bullshit, shade crap, zombies of Sirius, shades of Sirius, all the shit that went down in the Pleiades, all this crap, right? I am convinced that this shit is nothing but a bunch of old, untalented fuckers interdimensionally who thought this is a good way to make money. I think it goes down to interdimensional war profiteering, people. But were the interdimensional wars even real? Oh, now that's an interesting. Were the grid wars ever real? Were the frequency wars ever real? Was any of that shit actually real? And that's why we have to look at the memories, because I have looked at some very interesting memories lately, both of my own clients, soul family that I'm aware, like not incarnated, or they are incarnated, but not like I've looked through, like I can look through Raja's memories because he's given me access to them. I can look through some of my other family members' memories because they've given me access to them to get to collect the different perspectives, right? And when I started doing that, I started noticing that the themes existed at different moments in time. And that's why they want us to be afraid of each other. That's why they don't want us to compare notes. That's why they don't want us to talk to each other. That's why they introduce these trauma triggers, because they want us alone and paying them to heal us. Paying them for all of the things. Right? And it's not just money that they want to be paid in. They want to be paid in energy. They want to be paid in information. This might be somebody who's never asked you for a dime, but they really want to go to certain things with you, or they're always just showing up to be supportive. And so you just can't come up with a good reason to like get them out of your life, right? Even though there's just always been something off about them. Yeah. Yeah. Interdimensional economics do not just focus on money, people. Okay. They actually rarely focus very much on money. The money is kind of a byproduct of everything else in the interdimensional economics. They predominantly focus on energy and information because they think that if they can get certain energies, certain frequencies, and certain information and certain codes, they're very obsessed with it's very much like Julia in The Magicians. And how she was so jealous that she didn't get into break bills that one time, right? And then it was later revealed, spoilers, It was later revealed she had gone to break bills like 38 times and she always broke shit. And so they were like, yeah, we ain't letting her in this time because we've lived this timeline too many fucking times. She's a liability and we've had it. She breaks the timeline every time. We're not letting her in break bills this time, right? And then, you know, how like Marina, right? Also in The Magicians, was very obsessed with getting certain spells. She wanted certain artifacts. She was paying, or she wasn't paying. She was holding Katie hostage, like, you know, with like blackmail her or whatever, right? So that Katie would like steal stuff while she was going to this school. Oh shit, y'all. Does that sound like anybody you may have ever encountered? I bet you it does. Right? On some level or another. Then what people also didn't realize was that a ton of guides and people that were coming in to be channeled as goddesses or extraterrestrials or the high council of bullshit or whatever, right? They were not actually who they said they were. People also were working with a lot of channelers. This is one of my biggest things that I have found. If you're listening to light language that's making you uncontrollably shake, that's giving you really fucking weird energy, that is causing you to sob uncontrollably, get hysterical, or have psychotic breaks, that's not light language. That is attempted possession, masquerading as light language, okay? And I'm going to be honest, 98% of the people out there speaking light language, that's exactly what they're doing. They are not actually channeling any language known to the cosmic, celestial, micro, or macroverse. They're channeling a bunch of bullshit, gibberish, that actually is gibberish, right? And simultaneously making people think that anyone who speaks an interdimensional language is doing the same thing that they are. Now what's happening is they're opening micro portals to places that they don't even know exist. And weird shit's coming through. And sometimes it is like, you know, I say demons try to possess you. That's a little bit of a generalization and a joke. Demons never want to possess anybody. They're like, what the fuck would we want with your dumbass meat suits? Like, oh my God. And it's always like the most lower level consciousness beings that think that like a demon would want them, right? And it's like, bro, if I was even say I was like the second lieutenant of hell, maybe I'm not even the prince of hell, you know, maybe I'm not the king, you know, maybe I'm not a demon king, right? Maybe I'm just like, I don't know, a janitor in hell. I'm going to be real. What the fuck would I want with some like schmuck on earth for? Like what have you, why? I'm going to be, why? It doesn't make sense. Also, if anybody ever bothered to actually read anything about demons, there's a fabulous book. I think it's called The Dictionary of Demons. It's the red cover. There's also like the Encyclopedia of Demons. That's like a green and white cover. You want to go for the red one. I think it's called The Dictionary of Demons. I've got it in my occult library in storage. It's a fabulous book. It tells you all the known names of all the demons and it tells you all about them. And it's actually very interesting to read because when you start to read like, oh yes, you know, this one's really into intellectual discussions and, you know, geology. I was like, what? Huh? You know, and then the religious programming starts to break in your brain a little bit. That happened with me. I had hella religious programming, had read the Bible 6 times before I was 12. Not by choice. And I've read the Old Testament more. I've done the whole Bible 6 times. And then the Old Testament was probably at least 12, before I got away from nightly Bible study. So, you know, had a lot of study of that mythology, and magical practices embedded with it. Very easy to spot if you can. But it gets just very interesting of like, well, why would someone who wanted to discuss, you know, herbalism and philosophy all day want to possess Joe Blow that works at a truck stop? Like that, it begins to not compute anymore when you actually begin to read about what these beings are like. So if you've never done that, that's a fabulous book. I recommend starting there. I had this really funny, I think I've still got the video. Oh no, I've definitely still got the video. It's on my Instagram too, but you'd have to scroll back to like 2017. There's this really funny video that I did one night because like I had the book sitting in my lap. It's a decent sized book. It was like a paperback. though, but it was like a decent sized book. And I had it like sitting, it was in my general vicinity. And I was also casting spells for clients at the time. And I was really tired. I still had my office job. And I could not find my knife. I had this, I still have it, it's in storage. But my red IKEA knife, it carved most of my spells prior to 2023. My red IKEA knife, it's like the most, like that thing is charged. Like, let me tell you. One of my favorite spell casting tools, my red IKEA knife. And I couldn't find my knife. And I was like, shit, I need to finish casting my spells. Where's my knife? Where's my knife? And that was kind of a joke. Like, I was always losing my knife. Like, where's my knife? Where's my knife? I was always losing my knife. So I'm looking everywhere for my knife. I can't find my knife. And then I noticed that the book looked a little weird. And I was like, oh, there's something in my dictionary of demons. And I opened it up and there was my red IKEA knife. And I had used my knife as a bookmark. Oh, it's gorgeous. You know, I've had a breakthrough this week. I have realized I have been for 4 years now, 4 years ago almost. I discovered the North and South nodes and I read Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. And I have been trying to figure out, you know, being a Virgo South node and a Pisces North node, like what the fuck did that mean? What is the Virgo South node, you know, expression for me, and what is the Pisces North node expression? And I've realized that it all comes down to magic, which I think is probably a given with me, but it all really comes down to magic. The magic that I'm leaving behind is the very linear, structured Virgo style of magic, or Aldebaranian style of magic as well. You know, Aldebaran is what's transmitted with the sign of Virgo. And Aldebaranian magic, like I mean, battle magic's a good fucking way to put it, y'all. Like we had a process. Like we had that shit down to a science. Like, I mean, let me tell you, I turned witchcraft into a science. And I did that interdimensionally. I turned witchcraft into a science. Like I could predict based on what someone said in the client questionnaire that we had for them when they booked with me, exactly what I was going to recommend for them at the end of their consultation. And 1000%, like I was like, I would say probably, I mean, about 100% of the time, I would say maybe like 1 in every 50 calls, I got a surprise. Max. Like I got it down. I got that shit down to a science because I just did it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And that's how I was able to, you know, have the, you know, now a level of knowledge about those things that I do. But I feel like I'm kind of really like leaving that very structured, linear, have it down to a science kind of like very controlled and contained magic. You know, it's all about chaos vibes for me now, right? And that's very, I think, Andromedan energy with magic is it's whatever's needed in that moment. It is far more, I don't know, it's a little bit more interactive. It's a little bit more, I'm not sure about exactly how that looks yet, but I just kind of pieced together last night, like, yeah, Aldebaranian, like, yeah, we got that shit down to a science. Like it was very, very repeatable and easy. But I also think that, sometimes people focus a little too much on like the leaving behind aspect of the South Node. For me, it's really about knowing like that's, you know the rules to break them, right? It's like I learned that very almost like scientific, clinical style of magic to then be able to break all of those rules and go like full chaos code mode, you know? And so that's just a fun little tidbit, something that I've tuned into the past couple of days. Like I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like I think that's it. Cause I was like, I was not sure what that meant for a long time. And I've talked to different people. I've read different things. It was like, for myself, like no one could ever really explain that. And I think that that's something that people often forget with astrology it's very much coded to the individual. So you have to look at what that individual's source codes really are in, and magic's not really the right word for it, but it's the best word we have at the moment. So yeah. Anyways. Okay. This was going to be short, but it's an hour long. It's short for me though. It's not 3 hours long. So I mean, there's that. But I really want you to, start letting yourself without fear or with fear. Feel the fear and do it anyways, right? But what I expect people to start finding is, when you let yourself look at these things and these people, I don't think a lot of this shit's real. And I think until you have to look for the seam though. And sometimes it's you can miss the seam in less than the blink of an eye. Like you have to look sometimes for that seam in the memory. But when you look at, this is why I say to, observe your reality. Don't, the moment that I stopped fully immersing myself in my reality and just living everything as it kind of came to me without any observation, the moment that I stopped doing that, everything shifted. It is the observer effect. Absolutely. When you observe yourself and your reality and you really kind of start to take an impartial perspective, that therapy training really worked for me. I take I have always taken a very clinical, impartial, rational perspective look at magic, at all interdimensional fuckery. I'm going to say the wildest shit known to man, but I'm going to say it with a complete rational thought process behind it. Like, this is not me in my feels or my emotions in the least. This is why I'm not an emotional authority in human design. This is why I'm a splenic authority in human design, so that I have this ability to, like, if I'm going to say the real wild shit, and I'm going to say it with purpose and conviction. Thank you. Because that's just part of what I do. Like, that's part of why I'm so effective in the things that I'm so effective in. Because I have that I'm very grounded about it. I'm very practical about everything. We are going to try to debunk it, and then we're going to go just off the fucking walls with what we're going to say. You know what I mean? But when you start to look for this stuff, I think you're going to find that this is a hamster wheel that you've been sitting on for maybe more than a minute on a variety of things. And if you're like, no, I'm convinced that all of this stuff was completely real, maybe just keep this in your back pocket. Maybe you're having a little bit more of an immersive experience right now. Maybe in a little bit you start to realize that, I did start to connect those things. Maybe I'm completely off base. I don't have a good habit of being wrong. And I've been sitting on this theory for months now. I have been trying to debunk and disprove this for myself. And every single time I actually let myself go, yeah, that wasn't real. It's like it just poof. And the trauma and the emotions and the bullshit that came with it also go away. And it's like, I can tell you, I've definitely had some experiences occur that weren't fabulous. Right? But I'm going to be honest, even the trauma that I've experienced in my incarnational experience, unless you make it stick around and keep having a meaning for you, you can really transmute that shit. And so maybe this is just a very high level of transmutation that I've tapped into. But I don't think so, because I've tried to debunk it and I'm like, no, because I can tell the difference between, like, I alchemized this thing that happened and this never happened. And I'm going to take it back to Harry Potter once again. It's the way that they described the memory tampering. When they were in the memory, I remember this distinctly. It was like, that was a code that I was supposed to pick up. And I was like, got it, filing that away, right? When they were in the memory that had been tampered with, it was distorted. There was it, and they described it very similarly to how I started realizing that things were. And I'm going to explain this in just a second, a little bit more what I mean. And they were talking about this, it was in book 6. So it's Half-Blood Prince. So in Half-Blood Prince, they were talking about how, they went into Slughorn's memory. Everything was normal. It was a normal memory. They had been going into memories in the Pensieve for a minute. So, Harry and Dumbledore had been looking at all this different stuff. They went into this one memory that had been tampered with, and the memory was completely normal until all of a sudden things shifted very quickly. The volume level was different. Slughorn's voice was louder in one part of the memory than another. They didn't say this, but kind of the vibe that you picked up was like the energy of the memory got distorted. They went from being in this kind of immersive memory field where they could see things and they could observe things to, it was like the memory field itself, like that the architecture of it had started to like kind of wobble. Like things had started to get just very off. Right? And that's something that I've noticed, is that one part of the memory will be normal, and then the other part of the memory is not so normal. The other way to tune into this is like, you are who you are as a being, right? I've had this fabulous kind of fiery temper as a being. Like, excuse me? Like that, I don't know, oh, hell no, Texas energies it just feels like it's part of my soul. You know what I mean? But then for the most part, I'm a very chill person, and I've never, like, high levels of like uber heightened emotional intensity it's not really my jam as a being. I did notice that I had higher levels of that emotional intensity when I was younger, but when I was experiencing those higher levels of emotional intensity, I was around nothing but false trauma triggers. And I was reliving false trauma memories pretty much 24/7 when I was in these heightened emotional states. When I removed myself from those individuals and I stopped reliving those false trauma memories, I stopped living in that heightened emotional intensity state. And that is when I was able to step out of that and start observing my reality. And that's when I started to enter into this much higher level of like emotional coherence. And I stopped being this I stopped being dictated by my feelings and my emotions. And I was able to choose, like, do I want to feel this or is this fake? And what I started realizing was that a lot of emotions are fake. They're completely manufactured through illusion, right? So when I started to realize that, I was like, that's strange. Why are these things here to kind of manufacture these emotions? And then that's when I started realizing that there were just constant energy vampires around me 24/7. So I would love you to just, let yourself be free of fake shit. If you've got fake shit living rent free in your head. And it's scary to do that. And it might even be a little bit triggery to be like, I can't let this go. This is who I am. I've been there. I was just acting out myself. It's not who you are. It's an illusion. And if it is who you are, then those things can be alchemized. But I think what's happening is people are alchemizing and healing things that aren't theirs. That's why they're on this fucking hamster wheel. It ain't yo shit. It's fake. You cannot heal something that never happened to you. I can be sitting here like my leg's broken and I've got to heal it. And then the doctor's like, your leg's never been broken. You know what I mean? And then what gets even more fucked up is when you've been in an environment where doctors, medical professionals, healers, parents, whatever, have gaslit you, have not listened to you about, I literally went to 9 doctors in 6 months and 8 of them told me that I was making up that I was in pain. You know what I mean? So when you have experienced anything like that, which we all have in this incarnational experience to some level, right? We've had somebody tell us that we were making shit up at some point. That can be very easy to lay onto the now, right? And so then we can kind of fight. Like the first time my therapist was ever like, I don't think you're actually bipolar. And I was like, what do you mean? It had become part of my identity. Right. And she was like, well, you haven't actually had a bipolar episode in so long that it takes you off the agenda for being bipolar. So either you somehow miraculously healed yourself or you were never bipolar to begin with and it was all trauma induced. And she said that she had had patients before who had had diagnoses of bipolar, had gotten away from the person that was abusing them, gone to therapy, and suddenly they were no longer bipolar because they were just misdiagnosed from the beginning. And that's when I realized I was misdiagnosed from the beginning. Right? And so, but at the beginning, oh my gosh, I was so triggered, I almost fired her. I was like, how dare you? You don't know me. And now I'm like, yeah, she was right. I was given this diagnosis at like 21 that I never needed, that wasn't real, by someone who wasn't even a psychiatrist. And then what happened was I went to other psychiatrists and I told them, or I went to actual psychiatrists, I told them that I'd been diagnosed with that, and they just wrote me prescriptions. None of them ever actually bothered to evaluate me and see if that was a valid diagnosis until my therapist. So then I went to my nurse practitioner who was treating me for bipolar at the time, and I told him this, and he started asking me questions, and he was like, oh no. Oh, yeah, you don't actually meet the criteria of this diagnosis. And it broke my brain. Right? And then I had to, that's when I arrived at needing to do some alchemization for having been treated with high-powered antipsychotics for a mental illness that I never had. And I was told that I would have it for the rest of my life. And because nobody bothered to do any due diligence before treating me continuously, because the doctor who diagnosed me, I didn't see him again. I went to over 15 different psychiatric practitioners who never bothered to confirm the diagnosis and prescribed me increasing levels of different psych meds that never worked. And I paid a lot of money that at the time I had to do without other things to get these medications and to get this psychiatric care that I didn't need in the beginning. I needed to get away from the people who were actively traumatizing me. And I needed to realize that that was never supposed to have happened, and that was never my actual natural status. And I needed to remove myself from that environment. So this is an important conversation to have, but it may be a difficult one for some of you to kind of integrate. And I completely understand that. I would just like you to really start to look at like, who's really benefiting from you being in this frequency? Who's really benefiting from this being your perspective? And is it actually accurate? You know, I don't want people to spiritually bypass things that really do. You know, it took me, some healing. It took me some alchemy to kind of move forward from having had this incorrect diagnosis for a decade. And it's still shocking for me, you know, and it was, like I said, it was a huge part of my personality. I thought I was broken and was going to be broken forever. And a bunch of people profited a lot of money off of that. But I didn't profit anything off of that. And so that's why this is an important conversation to have when we really start to look at this stuff in just the incarnational experience alone. Who's profiting off of what you're feeling right now? Whose existence is getting better? Is it those people who fucking hate you across time and space? Because if so, it's your job to go out and make yourself be the one that's profiting in spite. We're going to get spiteful. This is real shadow work. Do it out of spite. Go out there and live your best life out of spite. Go out there and be happy and fabulous and a multidimensional baddie and successful and abundant and secure and safe, and stop living in those trauma triggers and stop all this bullshit out of spite to those people who have tried to get you to do anything but. That's real shadow work. Okay. That's how you integrate that stuff. That's how you take your power back. Go out there and live your best life. Go out there and be successful. Go out there and give yourself all of the dreams that you never thought you could have. Go out there and do all of the things that you want to do. Whether they make sense or not, whether they sound like a profitable business idea or not, whether it makes sense in the matrix, especially if it doesn't make sense in the matrix. Go out there and do all that shit out of spite for them and out of love for yourself. And the counterbalance will measure out. Okay? So anyways, please just know that I've been there. If you're feeling a little like, oh wow, I've just had some realizations and what the fuck? I've been there. Maybe have a nice salt bath. Definitely do some cleansing. Let yourself feel whatever you're feeling in this moment. You're likely to feel some emotions about this. You're likely to feel like, damn, I can't believe I wasted all my fucking time giving a flying fuck about any of this shit, right? You may cry. You may feel mad. You may just feel this sudden energetic reclamation and return of like, damn, I got a fire lit under my ass to just live my best life. Fuck everybody but me. You know what I mean? Like that, all of these things are likely. Give yourself a nice hug, wrap yourself up in something nice, maybe a nice beverage, you know what I mean? Maybe some nice witchcraft. A little witchcraft is a treat for your nerves. But the sooner I realize, like the sooner that people start to have these realizations, like I think people are healing a bunch of fake shit. Hello, healing matrix. You know, but we have to look at how that stuff was induced, where that stuff came from, and then put that stuff back in its place. You were never my kid. You were never my husband. You were never my wife. You were never my dad. You were never my teacher. You were never my mentor. You were never my student. You were never my guide. You were always somebody who was like a fucking beauty school dropout in Andromeda out here trying to act like you part of the interdimensional Grey's Anatomy team. Thank you, doctor. Which is a supernatural quote, by the way. It's one of my favorite episodes. If you've never seen that episode, I'm pretty sure it's in season 5. It's one of the episodes with the trickster. And it's fabulous. It's where they're immersed in all of the TV shows, and it'll be really nice for your nerves, okay? They're immersed in these TV shows and having to act out all the parts. Doctor. What's up, Mira? Doctor. Mira's a doctor. Anyways, I love you. Have a fabulous day. Take good care of yourself. Live your best life out of spite if that's what gets you up in the mornings. It's done it for me before. I literally, Harvest Rose took off because I was determined to be successful out of spite. I had it, and I was like, I'm going to live my best life and fuck all them. They suck. They were never worth being in my radiant presence. I shan't be putting up with this peasantry anymore. And you know what? It worked out really well. And what I've noticed is that they will try to get you back on that hamster wheel. And you just got to get better at recognizing it, honeys. Like, you really do. Because the second that you do, and the second you can go, no, this is an energy drain, and I'm not getting into that. I'm not part of that. I'm not vibing with that. And when you can start to recognize those energy drains and stop giving them your energy, you will start to have more energy to be successful. You will start to have more energy to live your best life. You will start to have more energy to do all of the things that you want to do in the ways that you want to do them. And you'll be able to actually exist in the frequency ranges that don't have you feeling like shit and questioning yourself all day, every day. Okay? But until you do that, you're going to continue to be on this hamster wheel and have these issues keep showing back up in various ways. Because part of the work here is to recognize what are the matrices? What are the cycles? What are the hamster wheels that are keeping you just spinning on them, but never actually going anywhere? And when you recognize that something is keeping you spinning in circles, but you're never actually having forward movement, that is a matrix. And it's time to get out of it. Okay? So anyways, I love you. Have a fabulous day, and I'll talk to you in the next show.